What's up, boys, girls, and everyone else? James Baek here today to talk more about Series 8 VGC, and apparently Calyrex has given us a little bit of a present, a little treat, where they have provided usage stats for a server known as the Legacy VGC server. If you don't know, it's a server where you can currently play Series 8 until it's officially released on Showdown on February 1st, as well as Stadium Ladder. So a lot of players have actually been going there to play some Series 8. And we even have usage stats from the server. So it would be really interesting, I thought, today to check out the usage stats of them. Even though it might not be the most accurate representation of Series 8, not everyone knows about the server, not everyone is playing on that server. I think it's really cool to see any kind of data that we can get on a similar format, and of course, like, look over that usage stat and see what we can expect for Series 8 and help prepare us for it. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like down below, as it really does help out, and leave a comment down below if some of these usage stats are going to surprise you, if this is what you expected. Basically, let me know in the comments down below. But so let's dive in and see what the usage stats look like currently. All right, so we got the usage stats right here, and the #1 Pokemon overall in Series 8. Oh boy, I know I'm gonna get comments about this. It's gonna be Incineroar. No surprise, really. Incineroar is a really great support Pokemon in general. Dark type is really good, of course. In Series 8, there's a lot of Psychic types, especially with the new ones. Calyrex is also a threat, really good against both Calyrex forms. And yeah, no surprise to see Incineroar, as it's a really good support Pokemon. Fake Out's amazing. Parting Shot was an amazing tool it got in Generation 8. And yeah, it provides taunt support, no surprise here. And yeah, no surprise to see Incineroar being a top Mon slot here, as it does really well against a lot of the common Pokemon, really helps support those restricted Pokemon very well. And yeah, I think it's no surprise to see Incineroar as the #1 use Pokemon here in this, especially since, you know, you don't expect restricted to be the top slots, of course, because of the fact that you can only run one restricted per team, and everyone's going to be trying out different restricteds in the beginning. So yeah, Incineroar being a top Mon, laid the #1 use, is no surprise here. Next, we got Regieleki, really good, no surprise, because of the fact that Regieleki, insane speed, 200 base speed is absolutely insane. Pretty much does what it does in Series 7, right? Electroweb speed control, absolutely amazing. This Fang outspeed Scarf Kyogre, which I think is absolutely huge to mention. Scarf Kyogre is such a big threat that you really need counters to it, where Regieleki, which can outspeed it naturally, which is really nice, or maybe something like Rillaboom with Grassy Glide that can, outspeed it. And no surprise, Rillaboom is #3 when we get to it. But yeah, no surprise, Regieleki Transistor allows it to hit super hard. 200 base speed is incredible. Electroweb supports, not to mention speed control is so good in especially GS Cup, where, you know, it can mean a lot, especially with these fast Pokemon. For instance, Zacian at base 148 speed, Calyrex, Ghost Rider, or Shadow Rider at 150. It's no surprise you want to slow them down, and having that, you know, that speed control where it actually affects the turn now because of how Gen 8 speed controls work. Having that instantaneous speed control is like really, really solid. And, really strong hitter. Obviously, electric coverage is actually pretty solid. And also screen setter, because screens are pretty solid on Regieleki. Screens are always solid in GS. Although not really used too much, it can really help against some of the strong hits and helps Calix a lot. So yeah, no surprise, #1 set is Choice Specs, which is interesting to see, since I was expecting Choice Specs to be the #1 set. I thought the #1 set would easily be Magnet, but Choice Specs, and no surprise, Light Clay is the 3rd item. I don't know if that's a surprise, but I'm actually surprised to see Choice Specs as the #1 item for the Regieleki. I think Incineroar was Citrus Berry, like normal. Oh, Figgy Berry, which is interesting. I mean, it makes sense because you're taking a lot more damage with Incineroar. For instance, -1 Max Quake from Calyrex, or just like Max Quake from Shadow Rider Calyrex is probably going to put you in that Figgy Berry range anyway. So it kind of makes sense to see the Figgy Berry actually overtake the Citrus Berry, compared to where Citrus Berry was probably one of the more common sets on Incineroar. But yeah, no surprise. Next, Rillaboom as the #3 usage. I'm not surprised. I haven't seen it too much on like ladder, but I think Rillaboom is pretty solid because, again, Kyogre, really nice to have. I think it's also really nice that Rillaboom is also good against Eleki, being able to like Grassy Glide, and if you're on the offensive Rillaboom, you could just outspeed Regieleki or go first with the Grassy Glide and just knock it out, which I think is really nice because that prevents the rest of your team from getting Electrowebbed, which is really cool, or them setting up screens. Solfez, the #1 item, which I guess isn't too big of a surprise. I'm actually surprised it's the #1 item, but it makes sense because being able to take on, like, you know, Kyra's Water Spout, being able to take the attack a little bit better is really nice. Rillaboom, really good Pokemon, of course, with the Fake Out Pressure, controlling terrain, which is nice. Grassy Glide support, pivoting with U-turn. Knockoff Windhammer are always super solid. Yeah, and it basically Rillaboom's just doing what it does ever since the hitting ability came out, right? Does a lot of damage. Grassy Glide does a good amount to Kyogre, can actually one-shot Kyogre. Not after Intimidate, unfortunately. Unless you're like choice banded, because I think with Miracle Seed, even if you get intimidated, you don't outspeed Kyogre, but you're still doing a lot of damage, which is preventing you from getting Water Spout swept. And I think that's like the most important thing when playing against Kyogre, is playing around that Water Spout, because if you get hit by the Water Spout, it is really, really bad. So yeah. Next Pokemon, Tapuffini, which actually, this surprises me. I didn't expect Tapuffini to be actually number 4 in usage, because I don't think I ever see Tapuffini, and I don't think Tapuffini is that good in restricted formats other than support. But maybe it's a little bit different, because you're not getting super pressed by, like, I guess Zacian anymore. Surprised it's still the same Calm Mindset, huh? Like, Calm Mind is actually one of the top ones, with Wiki Berry as the item, which is actually surprising that it takes over leftovers. But I guess when you have these like super strong hitters like Zacian, you kind of need like a bit more instant recovery, right? The Wiki Berry at top with leftovers, Citrus Berry, Choice Specs. Okay. Tapuffini is an interesting one, I guess, because it can, you know, take on Kyogre, or at least like live the Water Spout more comfortably. I think Kyogres are going to be running Ice Beam, but I think it's going to be a toss-up between Ice Beam and Thunder, of course, because Ice Beam is really solid for like hitting Rillaboom, for instance, which I think is a key one, but Thunder is really nice for hitting the water types that resist the Water Spouts. So I think it could be a mix-up. If you run Scarf, you probably run both anyway. But yeah, it's interesting to see. I didn't actually expect Tapuffini myself, because I don't think Tapuffini is that great, other than maybe like the support set. But I don't know if the support set is even that great, because like you don't need a haze as much. Like Tapuffini's role in like Sun and Moon series back in 2019 was like Nature's Madness, Icy Wind, maybe Gravity for Primal Groudon or regular Groudon, and then like Heal Pulse stuff. Maybe it would run Scald or just Moonblast for damage. But yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised, especially since like the Calm Mindset looks like it's still dominating pretty well. So I'm actually surprised about the Tapuffini's usage right here. Next one is Landrus, and yeah, not surprised that Landrus is being super solid. Rock Slide actually being the most common move than Earthquake is a surprise though. Why is Rock Slide the #1 move on Landrus over Earthquake? Because you want Earthquake to hit Regieleki, I feel like, but I think it makes total sense. I think Eleki is like one Pokemon that's super annoying for teams to deal with, so having a Pokemon that basically having a ground type in Landrus is probably your best ground type out there. And it provides a lot of support. Intimidate, really good for like Xerneas teams, especially because it helps. Ground coverage is always really good against Xerneas. Xerneas is always great with ground types, or just fairy types in general, because being able to hit fire, steel, poison super effectively, which resists the fairy type moves, is really important. And Landrus also being able to hit Ho-Oh with a powerful rock move is really key for like Xerneas teams to actually like do well against Ho-Oh. So yeah, no surprise, Sword Stance is really good. And Protect is actually #6 as the move, which is not surprised. I feel like most of them are going to run Sword Stance through attacks, or if you're the Assault Vest set, you're not going to run Protect, obviously. So Assault Vest is the #1 item, which explains why Protect is the last slot right here. And Life Orb as the second one, no surprise. Choice Scarf the third one, okay, maybe for pivoting U-turn. Lumberry, Choice Band, Wider, Focus Sash. A lot of items you can run on Landrus, and it definitely makes sense because Landrus is a very flexible Pokemon. Just again, really good against Regieleki, really good at supporting Xerneas. Intimidate, of course, helping Xerneas a lot, and other fairy types that can help out Zacian as well. So yeah, I think Landrus being here definitely makes a lot of sense. But next Pokemon is our first restricted, and this is not what I expected. Actually, I did not expect Kyogre to be the #1 used restricted here, actually. And the #1 item is literally Choice Scarf, while the other, I guess they don't have any other items, even though Choice Scarf is the #1 item and Protect is the #2 move. Okay then, not what I expected. Interesting that this is a set Moz 196. I'm assuming that's, I'm not even sure what that is supposed to outspeed. I'm guessing that's supposed to outspeed. I actually can't tell what's that's meant to outspeed. I don't even know if this is supposed to be for Scarf Ogre or for modded or for Tailwind support. No surprise though that the common Pokemon Tornado is supporting. Tornogre was all like one of the most dominant teams of Generation 7 restricted. It was like really good with Tornadus being able to have like Tailwind, Hurricane support, which Hurricane was really nice, Taunt, and like yeah, it was a really deadly combination. Not much could switch into Water Spout really. Like Rain boosted Water Spout and Orchard Pulse is basically a slayer for teams that just can't handle water type moves really well. And Kyogre is super threats, big spread moves, big damage with its drizzle, and of course like accurate thunders, like it can't miss thunder in the rain, which is super important. Also no primal Kyogre, no primal Kyogre, no primal Groudon, right? Because no primal Groudon is actually pretty huge. Regular Kyogre was always better than regular Groudon because regular Groudon was super underwhelming in restricted formats, I feel like. In this case, it definitely pays off here because now that it's just regular Groudon and like Torkoal that could really switch into like Water Spout to like try to weaken damage, they pretty much go down. I'm pretty sure Torkoal gets knocked out by Water Spout in the sun. And obviously Groudon takes a lot. You actually need a lot to invest, especially to live like Mystic Water, for instance, which is a common item. I'd assume that Mystic Water is going to be rising up. I've been facing I think compared to like Ladder, where I've been playing a lot of Ladder, it's actually like Mystic Water is probably the most common item, I want to say. I haven't seen too many of the items, but I'm assuming Mystic Water because I've been facing a lot of Protect Kyogres. I have faced a few Choice Scarf as well, but I'm thinking like Choice Scarf is always the threatening Kyogre, right? It's always the Pokemon that's like really hard to switch into, very hard to outspeed, unless you're like Regieleki, for instance. And yeah, I'm actually really surprised that Kyogre is though, because I feel like, you know, two of the top Pokemon on the list actually deal with Kyogre super well, especially just Choice Scarf one, Regieleki and Rillaboom. Grassy Glide support, just being able to knock out Kyogre once again and weaken the Water Spout, while Regieleki just outspeeds Scarf Kyogre, and if it has Magnet, probably just like does so much damage, if not KO or Electro Webs, and like slows down the Kyogre for the partner for it to finish off the weakened Kyogre is like, I think, just insane. I'm actually surprised that it's actually pretty high in usage, but I wonder if this will, I feel like this one will fall, but that's actually really interesting to know. I did not think that Kyogre was that important. And of course, the second Pokemon under Kyogre is Eternatus, and this isn't a restricted Pokemon, it's just a good legendary Pokemon in general. Having Focus Sash is the #1 item, which is not surprising, especially with like Eleki and a bunch of these powerful spread moves, for instance, like Calyrex and Zacian existing. Bulky Torn is like really hard to run probably in this format, so yeah, Focus Sash definitely makes sense here as the most common item. Tailwind, Hurricane, Taunt, Protect. I'm actually surprised that Protect is the last move. I've seen a lot more Rain Dance, I feel like, but I think because like Groudon's been really common on like a lot of people have been testing Groudon, so interesting to see Protect here, but it makes sense, right? Because I think Protect is really good. I do think Protect is probably going to rise up if it hasn't caught on to like the Stadium Ladder trend, because of the fact that I don't think you're going to have to really worry as much about like Venusaur and not Venusaur, Torkoal and Groudon. I don't think they're going to be nearly as common, although Venusaur with Torkoal is still probably going to be insane, so you might want to run Rain Dance as it would affect it a lot. But yeah, just interesting, I think, to see I think Tornadus Kyogre, I think super high. I do think this is going to drop off eventually probably, but yeah, no surprise, common sets. I mean, basically what you expect. Brutal Swing #5. I'm actually surprised that Brutal Swing is common over Rain Dance, but I guess maybe because they have just a Metagross pair with it. I'm assuming, yeah, Metagross looks like it's one of the top with 18%, which makes sense. Icy Winds, a little bit of surprise. I don't think you need Air Slash, but I guess if you're not running Kyogre. And yeah, interesting to see. And then you got like common support Pokemon. Amoonguss comes back up. I'm not surprised about Amoonguss because of the fact that, you know, Redirection is really good. Sleep is really good in a restricted format, being able to slow down your opponent's restricted Pokemon. And especially in Dynamax 2, like Sleep is always incredible. And Amoonguss is always good because it's like really good at usually sponging up one attack and getting the Spore off, which is really nice. Copa Berry being the common item. Pretty much Amoonguss has been basically this kind of thing. And Clear Smog, I'm guessing Clear Smog because you can't clear Smog. The thing about Amoonguss is it's definitely, I feel like, struggles against Zacian. Like Sub Zacian is definitely going to be a problem. Clear Smog probably for like Xerneas. I'm not sure how much Xerneas has been used, but I guess we'll get into that. And yeah, no surprise, pretty much your standard Amoonguss. Amoonguss always is like good in restricted format. Spore Regenerator is really nice in restricted format, being able to sponge up hits, put them to sleep, and then like heal back and then redirect attacks. Yeah, just really good. Indeed, no surprise as well, because redirection, there's a lot more psychic types as I mentioned before, so the psychic terrain obviously super solid. Having the ability to just like set up the psychic terrain for like Calyrex for instance, or Mewtwo, and just expanding force, and as we can see the most common partner being the Calyrex is very not surprising at all. Helps the Calyrex Ice Rider for instance set up with Trick Room for instance, and powers up its psychic move if it does run a psychic move. I'm actually not sure. I guess we'll look into it. Hilarion Moltres, no surprise. Dark type is really good as I mentioned in this format because there's a lot of psychic type moves, and yeah, basically Hilarion Moltres is like, if you don't want to run your Yveltal restricted, you run Hilarion Moltres instead because it provides a very similar role, and the fact that it's a pretty bulky dark type as well as dark flying type with like really powerful ways to hit opponents, and you can run weakness policy, and this is like a really solid item on the Hilarion Moltres or Life Orb, which makes sense as well. And yeah, it really helps to deal with a lot of psychic types, especially like Calyrex Shadow for instance. So yeah, no surprise that Hilarion Moltres is here. Cortana, Assault Vest, yep, #1 item, no surprise here because it's a Pokemon that can actually live with Water Spout, even though Cortana's special defense, as you can see, is like super paper thin, like 31 SPDF is not great. With an Assault Vest and a lot of investment, you actually do change a lot of calcs, and it's no surprise because of the fact that you can just like live a Kyogre Water Spout, which is huge, and then OHKO it back, because you don't have to invest like attack investment in order to KO Kyogre with Leaf Blade, which is actually pretty huge. Although with Intimidate from the Kyogre side, it will survive, which is unfortunate, but yeah, it doing massive damage. I think Cortana is an interesting one, and I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. I think the loss of knockoff is just way too huge, I think, to fix. Because like for instance, if I was facing a Scarf Kyogre, I could go for knockoff instead of Leaf Blade. And what that does is if they switch in Intimidate, at least I got to knockoff, which means Kyogre isn't nearly as threatening speed-wise, and then knockoff and a Leaf Blade might actually KO even after Intimidate. So I think that's really unfortunate for Cortana. Detect as the 4-proof of Assault Vest is really interesting. I'm assuming Aerial Ace is the top one. I'm not sure how I feel about Aerial Ace in this format. I mean, Max Airstream is obviously really good. I think Night Slash is actually appreciated because hitting Calyrex I think is really nice in general, but I'm not 100% sure. I mean, it depends on like how common Calyrex will be, of course, so that could be a factor as well. And I've also seen Guillotine, but yeah, Venusaur, no surprise. Vine Lash is absolutely insane. Like Venusaur, dumb in previous series, really good in general. Most common partner is Groudon, Charizard, and then Torkoal. Yep, no surprise there. Basically, as I mentioned before, Sleep is actually insane. The ability to Vine Lash against Kyogre is really insane, or Vine Lash damage in general, because it affects GS Cup calcs a lot, because restricted Pokemon do so much damage to where you usually need to invest a lot, and it's like you have very minimal room, I think, to maneuver against those attacks with like calcs. Or investment wise, so like having that 1/6 chip damage can just like mess up entirely and just like end the Pokemon. So yeah, no surprise. Sleep Powder, of course, fast sleep, especially with the new speed mechanics. If you're facing a Kyogre, you could switch in Groudon or Torkoal and you can like instantly outspeed, which is like really nice. It also works against the other restricted, so you don't have to lead Torkoal Venu anymore compared to like Generation 7, or like in that case it was Groudon Venu. And yeah, Copa Berry being the common item, I guess there's still Airstream from like Landrus and stuff, which makes sense. Life Orb commons item #2. Wildlands over Focus Sash is interesting, but I guess it makes sense. But yeah, overall, not surprised to see Venu. Porygon 2 is actually interesting. I'm not exactly too sure because I haven't used Porygon and I haven't really run into it much. I think Porygon's always just good, right? Because of the fact that it's really bulky, not really like only has one weakness in fighting, and that's basically Urshifu. And yeah, a Violet just makes it super crazy. Trick Room, recover to stall out max Pokemon. I think being able to take on Calyrex is absolutely insane. So this thing lives quite a lot, which is really nice. Of course, the weaknesses of running Porygon 2, it is susceptible to Taunt. And Taunt is a way more common move in restricted formats, especially, I feel like, because you don't want Trick Room to go up, although I'm not sure how common Trick Room will be. And surprised that it's actually, yeah, I thought it would be like really paired with like Calyrex, but Calyrex is actually low. The common supports are interesting, like Fiend, Glastrier, and Metagross. Huh. Interesting. And Yveltal is actually the most common restrictor, which I'm actually very surprised about. But yeah, Eerie Impulse is also a really solid step for the Porygon 2 in this generation, especially since it helps out against Calyrex as well. Shadow Ball, I'm actually surprised it's not one of the top moves, as actually it is. Let's look number 7. I could see it rise up potentially, because I think Shadow Ball is really nice for Calix. If Calix becomes too problematic, it's also good for like Cell Proc and Weezus Policy. Ice Beam makes sense though, because it does still hit Landrus and like Moltres for a good amount. So yeah, not surprised too much about Porygon 2, super bulky. Bold Nature, I'm actually surprised that Bold is the more common set, because I feel like you would want this to be special tanker, but I guess with Eerie Impulse that makes it up for it. So yeah, Grimmsnarl, I'm actually surprised. Screens are always good. I think that's really all I have to say. I did expect like Trick to be common, which it is. Trick is decently common, like Clay to help against the restricted. I think the thing about Grimmsnarl is that Behemoth Blade from Zacian is like really threatening. I think it might even KO to Reflect if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I'm not sure like how good Grimmsnarl is potentially, but yeah, it definitely does have potential, especially with like Trick and Lagging Tail, for instance. That could like really mess up a Kyra's day, for instance, which could be really bad for the Kyogre player. So yeah, I guess that would make sense. Like I did expect Grimmsnarl to have some use. I didn't expect it to be this high though. But yeah, it sets up screens, basically what it does. Trick to help against Dynamax and restricted Pokemon in this case, and yeah, not really that too much of a surprise. Scary Face for speed control is also really nice as well. And yeah, not too much to say. Zacian Crown, the second restrictor we see on this list, and a lot lower than I expected. Like, geez, I did not expect Zacian to be like, I expected Zacian to be one of the top restrictors, but I did not expect it to be this low. I mean, yeah, I just did not expect it to be this low. I mean, of course, base 170 attack is insane with its ability that gives it a +1 attack instantly when it enters the field. Really good bulk, as you can see. 92 HP and 115 each defense is no joke. 148 speed is absolutely phenomenal. It's like one of the fastest Pokemon in the game. Underspeeding, the important ones are going to be Regieleki, the Pheromosa, as well as Calyrex, but otherwise, yeah, still really solid in general. I think it's interesting because I never see Play Rough. I feel like the most common sets on Zacian usually that I see is Behemoth Blade Protect, yep, and then Close Combat Substitute. Substitute is really good on Zacian because of the fact that you can stall out max moves, which is really important if necessary. It also helps because a lot of teams, they laid wrong against Zacian. Like they have to like spend a lot to like get into a decent position against Zacian. And if Zacian gets a sub, which can also block Intimidate, which is also really solid as well, it just like is actually insane like how it goes. Like it can punish like Xerneas combinations, because like most common Xerneas setup is like Incineroar, Amoonguss, Xerneas. And yeah, like you could leave like Zacian and a fake out user and just fake out sub immediately, because it punishes Rage Powder, punishes fake out from, or punishes like trying to switch to Incin and protects with Xerneas to set up Geomancy. I think like sub is like really good in general. But yeah, because it makes like Xerneas is like really hard, I think. And yeah, I'm just actually really surprised to see Play Rough is the third one. I think because Play Rough, you don't need Play Rough, because most of the things you hit with Play Rough, I think you just hit with Behemoth Blade and you don't have that chance to miss. I feel like what you really hit with Play Rough is like not really much. Maybe you can like guarantee the KO on Moltres. Like look at this list. Behemoth Blade pretty much does everything I think that I would want to hit with like Play Rough anyway. Maybe against Eleki it would do a bit more, but I think Behemoth Blade does a lot anyway to Eleki. Incineroar I'm hitting with Close Combat. Moltres I'm fine with Behemoth Blading. Yeah, I just don't really see too much I would really hit with Play Rough. Even Yveltal, I think I'd rather just like go for the Behemoth Blade, because it will do a ton of damage, especially since it punishes the Dynamax and avoids a Weakness Policy setup. So yeah, I think I would still run. I don't think Play Rough will be as common. I definitely think sub is the more common set, especially on like ladder. But and items, I mean, you can only run one item on this, and you can only run one ability on this. Support mons: Incineroar, Rillaboom, Regieleki. No surprise, no surprise. Landrus, Moltres, you get pretty good stuff. Wheezing, Regigigas. If you don't know, with Wheezing, you can get neutralizing gas on Zacian. And for instance, you send in your Zacian, you get your thing, and then afterward you can switch into Wheezing. and then all the other abilities are negated, so you can't get Intimidate, for instance. And then afterward, you could actually switch out the Wheezing, and you can actually get +1 again because your ability reactivates when Wheezing leaves the field. So you could actually get like +2 Zacian that way. Or it's also like really good in general because Zacian already has a high base 170 attack, so it's not like necessary to get the +1. It's just like better, and you can also slow down other abilities, so no surprise that Wheezing's up here is actually something I've been testing recently, and it's a really fun thing you can do to get like +2 Zacian, for instance. And like it also stops Intimidate, which is like just really nice for that. Hurts Zacian a little bit, especially if they have like multiple Intimidates, like Incineroar Landrus combination. Next one, Yveltal. I'm actually surprised Yveltal's on one of the top ones here. Oblivion Wing, Protect. I'm actually surprised about the items too. Bulky Yveltal is not the thing I expected at all. I expected Weakness Policy to be the more common set, and it's not even on the list, which, man, that surprises me a lot, actually. Wow. I did not expect that. Okay, so I've been fighting, I think, nothing but Weakness Policy Yveltals when I play it, and yeah. I mean, Yveltal has pretty okay attack and special attack. They're like, for restricted, this is kind of probably low, but it's balanced, so you could run either physical or special and it hurt a lot. Dark Aura, of course, really good ability, increases dark type attacks, which is really nice. And yeah, I'm just actually surprised to see defensive Yveltal play more. Yeah, I'm actually just really surprised. I guess because Yveltal does really well against basically non-restricted. Like Yveltal is really good against non-restricted because the fairy types don't really counter, I think, Yveltal in the most part. He plays pretty passive against it, other than Calm Mind. And then you look at the other restricted and they don't, or non-restricted, and they don't really touch it super well, except maybe like the electric types. Of course, if you have Lightning Rod, you could avoid that. And rock types aren't really as common rock type coverages, but of course you could be scared of Weakness Policy, and I think that's why Weakness Policy is also like a really good set on Yveltal. Yeah, I'm just actually interested, surprised to see this kind of set. Let's get Tailwind. I'm actually surprised Tailwind's super low here, because Tailwind, it's like having Tailwind support is really nice for speed control. Yeah, I'm interested to see. It's just really bulky. Like Yveltal with Oblivion Wing is really hard to KO, especially for non-restricted. Zacian being pretty high, Kyogre does hit it pretty well, I guess. So yeah. Next, Groudon. I'm surprised Groudon's actually super high here. I don't think Groudon is that great of a Pokemon in this series at all. I don't. I think Groudon just, I feel like it's really underwhelming. I always thought about this back in Sun and Moon series where we didn't have Primal Reversion or Mega Evolutions yet. I feel like this Pokemon's always just super underwhelming. Like switching into Kyogre, which is supposed to be its nemesis, and taking like 90% from Water Spout, for instance, was never super optimal. Because basically, even if you're trying to do that to knock out the Kyogre, you're trading so much on your restricted anyway. So like, there's probably like better rolls you can do with it. Why is the #1 most common item Wide Lens 2? Don't run Wide Lens on Groudon. I know Precipice Blaze is an inaccurate move, but that's basically the risk when you're taking Groudon anyway. If you're running Groudon, you always run Precipice Blaze, but I wouldn't recommend Wide Lens. I think you just have to risk it at that point. I think it's like such a, it's like an item you only run for Precipice Blades, and it's like you just, at that point you still have a chance to miss it anyway. So yeah, I don't think like the difference is that big anyway. I think Choice Band makes sense as an offensive item. I'm actually surprised it's not the Citrus Berry, a Guava Berry, or like, you know, the Pinch Berries to heal Groudon, or you know, just helping Groudon out. I think it's a lot better, especially on the Sword Stand set, especially since like bulky Groudon is probably one of the better ones to live, like, because you need it to live Water Spout. Like for instance, the spreads that we're seeing, like the 4 HP on here, I think this goes down to Mist Water Spout from Kyogre, which is really big. That's really big. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it too much. I also think yeah, just surprised to see Groudon so high. Then Metagross, not surprised, good Steel type, helps against like does decent against Zacian and Eternatus and all that. I think I want to go over not much too more, but I just want to go through a little bit more. I think Calix is really good. I think a lot of people underestimate this Pokemon, and I think it's really solid. 150 speed outspeeds Zacian, which is crazy. And if you have a Helping Hand support, you knock out Zacian with Astral Barrage, I believe, and that is actually just incredible. as that's basically your boost. 2 abilities in one: Unnerve, which punishes defensive stuff like healing berries, for instance. Resist berries basically are useless against this Pokemon. Really good, especially since it also gets the Grim Knife, which means it gets a special attack boost every time it gets a KO. I think Nasty Plot is overkill. I don't think you need Nasty Plot. If you can get the Nasty Plot up without taking too much damage and have like Calix be the fastest thing, yeah, it'd be amazing for sure, I guess. So I never felt like you needed it. I felt like Helping Hand was good enough for just doing damage. I like Sub a lot actually, and Sub is actually not here. Mudshot I understand for coverage. Wisp, I guess that makes sense for like certain teams, especially like if you want to Wisp like what exactly the, I guess you could Wisp Zacian, I guess that would be nice. Dark Pulse Snarl, I don't think that's necessary at all. I think this thing's really good though, with Astral Barrage, Expanding Force, Protect, and then I think Nasty Plot, Mudshot, even Strike is really good from Hyper Beam as well. Just keeping the speed control is really nice in general. So yeah, I'm actually surprised it's not that high. Of course, there are like dark types, like a lot of dark types in the top usages, but I think Calix, if you play well with against them, it's like really solid with Pokemon. Like this thing is a really big threat, and yeah, it can just sweep teams. I swept a lot with Calix when I was using it, and I was like super impressed by it. Let's go over, I think, Whimsicott and Urshifu, and I think that'll be the end. If you want to check out this usage stats, of course, I'll link them in the description down below. So make sure to go check it out. Thanks to Calyrex for posting this data. I think it's really nice. Whimsicott, no surprise, Tailwind, faster than Torn, so you could like taunt a Torn, I guess. I think like it's just really solid in general. Whimsicott's really nice. Instance Tailwind is just like really good for restrictions like Calyrex. Helping Hand support is also really nice for like if you think Water Spout and Astral Barrage with like Life or Mystic Water or Specs, whatever you have is like a lot. Yeah, you might EV to survive those, but then Helping Hand screws over your cow. Fake Tears is also really good as well. Dazzling Gleam for the spread. Got a lot of others support. Sunny Day, I guess that's to counter opposing Kyber, which I'm not surprised. You might run maybe Whimsicott on a Sun team, for instance. But yeah, not sure how Sunny Day is going to do well, because it's good for like non-Torns with but it's bad against Torns with Rain Dance, because Rain Dance because Torn is slower than Whimsicott. You Rain Dance, you Sunny Day, but then they Rain Dance again. So there's that as well. Grassy Glide is number 11 is actually like really funny to me. It's really funny to me. Base 67 attack with Grassy Glide. I'm not even sure if you're running Whimsicott or Rillaboom, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't see Rillaboom at all on this list for partners. So yeah. Focus Dash, number 1 item. Trick Ejects Button, no surprises, number 2. Actually, yeah, Switcheroo. Yeah, Switcheroo is pretty high up there. Okay. And Prankster being the same ability. Like Whimsicott just having that, being able to help support the restricted monsters is always super solid with speed control and offensive capabilities with Helping Hand, and like taunt support is really nice for like fast restricted. And then the final Pokemon I'm gonna go here is Urshifu, and I'm actually surprised Urshifu is actually this low. I thought Urshifu would be higher, but I think Urshifu still goes insane in this format. I think it's really good against like obviously Calyrex. It can threaten with Sucker Punch potentially. Because he probably has to play against maybe like Indie or Redirection, which is a thing. Which is why I really like Sub on Calix. Focus Sash being the common item, no surprise. Urshifu is still very frail, so you probably want to like one hit and get the attack off. And Choice Band number 2, no surprise. Choice Scarf number 4, interesting. I know Choice Scarf was used back in Series 7 a little bit as a little bit of a gimmick, but I guess because I think you do outspeed Calyrex with the Choice Scarf, I guess. Oh man, and then Wicked Blow, that's actually yeah. I don't even want to think about that as someone who's used Calix before, but yeah, I think Dark Urshifu, how is it number 1 teammate Dark Urshifu? Yeah, of course it's gonna be. It's like no, that's not even possible. You can't have a teammate like that. But yeah, I think Urshifu is actually probably could be higher. I think it does really well against like a lot of Pokemon that like, you know, it can help out the support of fairy types. It does really well, of course, against the psychic types, which is really nice, and just really threatens a lot. I think Close Combat for like Porygon 2 is still really solid. I think it just hits really hard with Wicked Blow, especially like Metagross. It hits Kyogre super hard, and you know, can knock out Eliki, for instance. It just does a lot of damage, I feel like, to the top mons. It might not do like super well against like the fairy restricted, but I feel like it does well against like general support Pokemon, especially like hitting instant for close combat. Cortana for close combat. Wicked Blow does a lot of damage to most of these Pokemon that I'm seeing. So yeah, I'm actually surprised Urshifu is super low, but yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up here. Let me know in the comments down below if this was helpful to you, or if like any of these were surprising. I'm actually very surprised about some of these usage stats. I think Zacian is like, I'm surprised Kyogre is like that dominant. Like Zacian at 10% usage while Kyogre at like 18% usage, I think is insane, because that's like literally almost double the usage stats. I'm actually surprised. There were definitely some usage stats I definitely found surprising. Calix being a bit lower than expected. Urshifu definitely being lower than expected. Grimmsnarl and P2 are actually higher than expected. Some of these definitely make sense to me. Tapuffini being really high, I feel like is a surprise to me. Rillaboom might be a little bit higher than expected, as well as Cortana. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below. I think this definitely can be an interesting format. I'm also surprised Groudon is super high. But overall, that's my opinion on these usage stats. Of course, not everyone plays this legacy server. A lot of you probably don't even know what the legacy server is, but there have been VGC players who have been playing on the server, and this is like the usage stats that we have. And I think it was like really cool to see some of the stuff that we can. Definitely didn't expect Kyogre to be this popular, but then again, I have faced a lot of Kyogre I think recently on ladder, so yeah, maybe Kyogre will be the #1 restricted. Maybe I'll be wrong. I think Zacian still is going to be very dominant, especially as like people recognize how threatening Kyogre is, and like there are a lot of good tools I think to handle Kyogre, so I definitely think it will drop. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can get more content like this. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Check out Pikalytics. Thank you to them for these usage stats again, listed down below in the description. And yeah, check me out on my other social medias, Twitter, Twitch. If you have a question about VGC 21 restricted formats, feel free to come into my Twitch channel. And yeah, I do play a lot of VGC as well there. But yeah, have a great day, people. Until we bow again, I'll see y'all later.